I'm installing this clutch master cylinder to slave cylinder stainless steel braided line, and this is probably one of the harder installs if you're actually removing the old hard line. Now granted, most people would probably just go ahead and leave the original, maybe cut it where they didn't see it, or maybe even just remove the whole motor, or do this while they had the motor out. But I don't have that luxury at this point, so we're going underneath the car. There are two brackets that hold the hard line with the brake line that goes to the passenger side, so be very mindful of what you are removing, and use jack stands when you got the car up in the air. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to try to get a couple shots of the vehicle underneath where I have detached the brackets, and then where I'm going to mount it across the firewall from that master. I drained what was left in the master into a recovery pan, an oil pan as it were. I used a little syringe, empty that out so I don't have any more fluid going everywhere. I'll disconnect the line, and then from the master disconnect, and then across the firewall. It's quite difficult, it's hard to reach. Been using a 10mm socket, an extended socket, and a 1/4-inch ratchet with two different extensions. One short, about 2.5 inch, and then one that's about 6 inch long, 4.5, 6 inch long, something like that, in combination to reach where those two brackets are held down with a 10mm bolt. One is located around this side, and then the other is just across the subframe by your oil filter underneath the car. So I'll try to get a shot of that, and then we'll start trying to get this across the firewall. So this is one of the brackets I was able to remove from the pass side, and you can see that it holds two lines. Try to get to focus there. And you got one large and one small. The larger one is your hydraulic line, your solid hydraulic line. So you can see that it's not a bowl, it's a nut. So I misspoke on the last, but it's mounted up onto the firewall around just above the rack and pinion. And there's two of these, and definitely a pain in the rear to get these off. You loosen the one on the driver's side. It's just a matter of opening it up, and on the passenger side, I have plenty of room since I've got a lot of components removed. I was able just to remove the whole thing, set it to the side. So on the driver's side, right underneath the rack and pinion, or excuse me, above the rack and pinion. It's really hard to open this up and get that one line out without getting the brake line out. So what I did was I made the effort here, and I came through and I disconnected the master cylinder connection there, and then there's one more spot, and I'll try to get it to focus in. My camera is not the best, so I do apologize. I don't think I'm going to be able to see it. It's pretty deep down in there. You can see that yellowish colored retainer. There it goes. It's starting to look in. So down there, underneath all these components, is the last. You can see the hydraulic line here. It's just starting to go down. The rest of the line, as you can see from the video, I had disconnected the master part, the connection to the master cylinder. And then, of course, this has kind of been bent and manipulated and cut, but it comes up, and let's get a quick view here. So it comes up here, it crosses here, it's connected to this location here, and then it travels over and down from here. And then there's an additional retainer, and you can see that yellow retainer right there. I was able to get you a better shot now that I got some stuff out of the way. So I was able to get that off. I wasn't gentle at all with it. So you can see I've got multiple pieces that have been cut. I got it off with a pair of pliers on the retainer on the firewall just above where the supercharger is. Now if you don't have a supercharger and all you do, you have an intake manifold, easily accessible. So once I got it here, I found it much easier to slice it here, bend it up, go underneath the car, and be mindful where you're cutting because you do have a brake line right next to it. So you want to make sure you've got the right line. I cut it here, and then I was able to slide this one up and out. Of course, that one was gone. And this piece here goes across the firewall and starts to come across the subframe. Now, in an additional video where I took the transmission out, I got cut up a little bit, so I decided to get rid of the damper unit that sits on the passenger side fender well, and that's where I cut here. And then I was able to just pull that out, clean up my mess. Now, like I said in an additional video, I had this one already removed. I kept it all just to show you guys what the hard line entails, and you can see all these windy little avenues and up and around. It just seems a bit excessive. This is off the transmission. It's just you've got your flexible line here, which you can buy replacements that are high performance when you still have all this additional line that doesn't change anything. All you're doing is buying a $50 part or a $30 part to have the Goodrich or whatever brand name it may be. This really, you know, why just replace, you know, a good foot long piece when you can replace everything. Now this connects to the slave cylinder and all this piping. I'll keep the bracket. If I can reuse it, that's awesome. This port, this galley, this junction point, whatever you call it, it's no longer useful. So it all just comes by, and we're going to replace the entire unit with a stainless steel braided line, which we have right here that I got from Bonehead Performance. Alright, so I went ahead and used the elbow here. It seemed like the straight line was way too there was too much interference. So using the correct fitting, went ahead and put that attached to it. I ran it across the same connection as the original hard line, and I'm just running it straight across here. We'll secure it with maybe a bracket or some type of fitting fastener. Comes down here. We'll buy something or make something there that'll come across, and then you can see that there's plenty of hose to go all the way to the slave cylinder. So that'll be it for this video on the running of that line. Went ahead and reattached the brackets to the brake lines from both points. And that was pretty difficult in itself, so make sure you get that done. You don't want your brake lines rattling around. You could wear a hole into those hard lines. Not real quick, but over time it can have an effect. So there's that Bonehead Performance stainless steel braided line. I used the elbow on the master to give me some clearance, and then I'll have the straight part here, the straight connection. If need be, we can buy us an adapter with an elbow on it. Yeah, just make sure you protect your ends when you're doing it. The fittings themselves have a bevel to them, and they can become damaged if you're abrupt and you're hitting something, or it bangs onto something metal and if you ruin that bevel, you're not going to create a good seal, you're having a leak. So just be mindful of stuff like that.